I'm going to cover some of the basic editing for the Stone Horses app backend. So this is how you can make changes, add articles, and I'm going to spend most of my time on the events system since it has a few more things than the others. So you can see here on the left, I have a preview of what the app looks like. It does run as more or less a mobile website, so you can get a really good idea of how it will feel just by taking a browser window like Chrome or Firefox and kind of just scaling it down to the width of loosely the width of an iPhone or any kind of mobile device. The height is not quite as important, but this gives you a feel for how things are laid out. On the right, I have the WordPress administration area, and I've logged in, and we'll get you those details. And down the left here, there's a menu, and most things you'll need are either under Posts. That's where the latest will be, is under Post, and then you have Events under Events. Some of these things will clean up, but if they're still there, they can safely be ignored for the most part. So I'm gonna go ahead and go into Posts, and you'll actually see here we have the 3 posts. These will be displayed in reverse chronological order, so the most recently will appear first. I believe it will show the most recent 10, and then they will kind of cycle out. All right, so let's just look at this first one, the St. Patrick's Day, and I'm going to click over here. And on the app, I'm just going to go ahead and click on the title, and that's going to slide in the actual article. So everything you see on this page kind of maps to something on the back end here. We have the title at the top, that which appears here. We have the featured image, which will appear right below the title. We have some body text, which appears below that. So those 3 elements more or less, and the category is defined down here. If I change one of these, if I switch it from new releases to custom model horses, I can save that change just by hitting update. And once it does that, I'm going to come back here and hit my refresh button, and it will bring me back to the page, and here it is, having moved it into the custom model horses category. Likewise, if I move that back, or change the title, or the text, or the image, this would change. So this way you can set up your basic articles. If you want to make a new one, you would just hit Add New, and it looks exactly like the other one. It just has nothing filled in. You can save things as drafts if you've written them, but you don't want to publish them yet. You can also schedule them to be published in the future. So if there's an announcement you want to make, but at midnight on such and such date, you can actually schedule that to occur and not have to have somebody there hitting the button. So that's all pretty useful. You can see here we have a menu hidden under there, and it's made to look very app-like. We have a back button here and sliding transitions. So I'm just going to check out another page, specifically the events. These are very similar to the posts. It's all pretty consistent. One thing to note here is we have the main event page, and then we have some sub pages, and you can tell they're sub pages by the little indentation line shown here. So the one that doesn't have the indentation line is the main page here. So I'm going to edit that first. So this has a few fields. It has the title, which appears up here at the top. It has a featured image, just like the other one, which will appear, in this case, right below the header. There's a couple fields here that are not in the content. There's the dates. So this display dates appears there. The Fort Wayne, Indiana, will just specify the date, and I will check on why this is giving such a ridiculous error, but this is generally working, and it lets you choose a date to link to on the to link to Google Maps. It's in a special format that works on mobile devices. So I apologize for this. I didn't realize it was broken, but by the time you look at it, it should be all fixed up. So then there's some more things here. There's some content text. There's some additional sections, and then there's an event registration form. And you'll notice none of that like the other post. The other post had all this text right in this box. So you'll know, but you might notice this giant blue button. I'm going to go ahead and click that. We're using a system called Elementor, which is a little new to us, but we're very excited about it. It works really well for what we've been doing. And what it actually lets you do is edit the content right in line. So it looks like the page. It's a little stretched out, but it looks like the page. And here's all the things that you couldn't see before. So if I want to edit this, I can just click on it and make my edits. There's also this sidebar where I can also make edits, but over here, unlike in the main area, I have the ability to use some of these basic formatting tools and actually change the text, and you'll see it's actually updating in real time as I change these things. One thing to note here, there's a wonderful mode for responsive design. So down here you'll notice there's this little monitor, and if I click that, I get the option to actually view the site in a desktop size, which is what it defaulted to, in a tablet size, and in a mobile size, which for most users is going to represent what it looks like. So you can actually see what this is going to look like. And it even functions in many ways. You can't click to other pages, but I should say you can click on this, but it doesn't take you to the editor. It takes you to the actual page. So you can edit the page content while it looks just like it's going to, instead of in that completely different back end. So we really like that, and we're expecting that to make it a lot easier for clients to do some of their own edits. So the two things to pay attention to here are this main area, where, like I said, many edits can be made right here. And on the left, just by clicking, you'll kind of get a feel for, by clicking on this, I'm pulling up the editor for this, and I can actually do some editing over here or in line. Now some things like this thing here, I'm just going to click anywhere inside here. This is a little different. I'm not necessarily making the edits as much there. Clicking on things in fact makes it difficult to use. So if I click on this, you'll actually see the editor is kind of more over here in this case. So, but these are very easy to put together. So daily schedule of events, if I just click on this, you'll actually see I have the text. If I wanted to make this super important, I could put some exclamation points. So I'm doing the editing over here on the left now, but it's still reflecting on the right. If I don't want the calendar for some reason, there's a whole library here of different icons, and I can just choose any one of them. Again, you'll see it just updates immediately, so you can see exactly what it looks like. Or of course I can go back to the calendar as we had it. And then there's link, and we will go into how link works in a minute. This is kind of important, and we're going to make sure we provide some text explanation too. It's probably the one more complicated feature that we're using here. But just as I was saying, you can edit any of these. I can edit bus schedule. If there's one that you don't need, you can just hit the X and remove it. So that takes care of that. And then below that, we have this event registration element, which just loads a form. So there'll be an event registration, and then there'll be another one that requires payment. So if you're not doing any registration, you can actually just click here. Oh, I think you have to go into, right, sorry. There's one quirk. You can't delete items when you're in this tiny view. But if you go back up to tablet, possibly desktop. I'm going to go to desktop. There we go. So then all these buttons come back, and I can actually I could just delete that if I wanted to. Yeah, okay. So unfortunately, yeah, you do have to go up to the larger size, but it is what it is. Yeah, so literally that's just how we did this. So if you wanted to add some more text, and you can actually, I'm going to go ahead and click on this little grid here at the top. And there's actually other things you can add, which are really nice. So if you wanted to add a I don't even know let's just say an icon just to show you how it works. So I'm just going to drag an icon there, and I can then change it. So if for some reason it became very useful for you to have a picture of a gavel halfway down your event page, you could certainly go ahead and do that. Again, to get rid of it, I will just go back to desktop and ta-da. And I'm back to where I was. Oh, I got rid of the entire row that included the form. That's all right. None of your changes are saved right away. You have to hit the update button in order to actually save them. So I'm going to go ahead and not do that. But it will work. You can click through to these pages, but let me show you the right way to do it. So that's how to do the main page. I mentioned before there are subpages. I can click to this, but this does not, and this actually loads a subpage. This does not give you the power to then edit it. So this is actually not the way you would want to do that. So when you click the Edit with Elementor on this page, it's for editing this page. I'm going to click here on the top left, and I'm going to go back to the dashboard because let's say we've made all our edits and we're ready to look at some other things. I can go back to events, and we have these other pages. And I'll actually demonstrate some of this over here. So we've got, if I click on daily schedule of events, what it's doing is it's just loading the daily schedule page. If I want to edit this, I can go into here, and again with Edit with Elementor. So here's the interface that we were just looking at, and I'll actually go down to mobile view so we can see it here. And so this just demonstrates some of these things working. This is a good example that I can show you of. I can go into style here, and there are actually some things I can edit if I want to change the border between things. I can actually make it greater or smaller. Most of the time you probably won't really want to change this, but you could. So I just reset the title back to a more reasonable size. I can, go from ludicrous down to probably a bit more reasonable, and I can update that. And now that I've made a little change, I don't know how visible it'll be, but over here, if I refresh, yeah, the text got a little smaller. I guess I can do something more obvious. So I've made a change. If I refresh that, oh, I didn't update, but it also hasn't detected that I've made an update. There we go. So now if I refresh, great, okay. So you can, so I did this using what's called a toggle element. So if I click on this and I see toggle, what that means is if I go back to that grid, if I want to add another thing, I can just drag, an image pretty much wherever I want, and or I can drag any of the elements I see. So if you want to explore some of those, there's a big library of things. It may take some getting used to, and we're certainly available to help with that. But yeah, so we have this nice visual page builder for you. So you don't have to know HTML, and you don't have to necessarily contact us for everything as you get used to using it. But like I said, we can certainly support you as you're getting to know the system. So I did not set up every single subpage. When we have actual event data, that's when we'll do that. So I'm going to show you how to set up a link. So I'm going to go back here. So I don't, for example, have a model horse show page. So when I click this, it actually does nothing. So I'm going to show you how I do that as a visual reference, and then we'll probably type out the instructions here. So in order to do that, I'm going to need to make another one of these subpages. So I'm just going to hit, actually what I'm going to do is, I'm going to show you a shortcut. I'm going to take an existing page, especially if there was one that kind of looked like you wanted it to. I'll take the shopping page just randomly, and I'm going to clone that, because when I do that, it copies everything over, and it's a little easier. So one thing it copied is it kept it as a subpage of the event. So I'm going to click on that to edit it, and I'm going to change the title. We're going to kind of just go through the things on the page. So I was making the model horse show page, model horse show, and I'm going to change this what they call the permalink. It's only going to let me change the last bit. And this is just it's an internal thing. In fact, I believe I can just leave it blank. Yeah, there we go. All right, so all I did was I erased it entirely, hit OK, and it actually gave me a good one based on the title. So that would be our recommended thing. The parent page, this is important, but it's already set up because I cloned the page. If I had not cloned the page, I'd want to make sure I came here and chose the event as the parent page. That just makes this a child of it. And I can go into Elementor. Or sorry, I'm gonna actually publish this just to make sure my changes have been saved. And now I'll go to Elementor. So Elementor, the update button, saves things that are in Elementor. The settings that you put in outside of Elementor, there's a separate update button. So this is what I had in the shopping page. I just had some text with some rows, and it was all that was all pretty simple. I'm gonna erase that. And just as a demonstration, I'm gonna put in an image gallery. So I just literally just dragged it in, and I will say I want thumbnail images, and I'm just going to add some of these images that we have in here. There we go. And with that in place, for now I'll just make that my let's pretend they're all model horses. I'm going to hit update. And so that's kind of it for setting up the page. I mean, this is where you would spend most of the work, is figuring out, what you wanted to be on this page and so forth. So I'm gonna go back up here and exit to dashboard, and we have to do one more thing to tell it that when we click on this button that we want it to open this page. And I'm gonna just carefully select this whole thing. Back to the. I'm gonna skip this part. And just take everything from events, including the slash, to the end. And I'm going to right click and just hit copy. And now I need to go back to events, go to my event, and go to Elementor. I'm going to find that model horse show link. So I'm going to click on this, and then here it is. And down here where it says link, I'm just going to erase that and paste what I just copied. Alright, and then hit update, and that is it. That is probably the most complicated part of setting this whole thing up, and it shouldn't be too bad. So I'm gonna, on the left here, I'm just gonna refresh our app page, and now when I hit model horse show, there we go. It just slid in that new content, and it has it laid out just as we looked at, or just as it was when we set it up. So editing events is pretty simple. When you were ready to do another event, you don't have to remove the old one before. I'll make sure to put a note on how to do that. But you can have an event up and be setting up the next event as long as you don't publish it right away. And again, we'll provide some instruction on that. Then you can actually set it up ahead of time, and not have to do it. If you have a narrow window between events, you don't have to do it right then. You can have a lot of it done ahead of time. You can also, the clone trick works really well. You can clone an old event to become the new event. So if you do the same event every 6 months, you don't have to necessarily start over each time. You can use the old one as a template. So that's the quick information on how to edit these things. There's a few other elements that are coming soon, but that's how you edit posts, and that's how you edit events. I would certainly recommend you start by looking into maybe editing a page or two here, and then maybe adding your own if you have content ready for it. That way, if you run into any issues, we can be right there to kind of get you over those first hurdles. But other than that, yes, we'll accompany this shortly after with some written tutorials as well.